So, as I said in my earlier 1911 video, there are so many variants of this handgun that to make one video and say I've showed you how to take apart a 1911, it wouldn't do any good. So what I've done today is I borrowed my brother's Kimber Pro Carry to show you how to take apart a 1911 with a bushingless barrel, with a bull barrel. So first off, we're going to make sure that the gun is completely unloaded. To do that, again, magazine release on the left side of the gun. Let the magazine drop free. We'll press up on the slide stop and pull the slide to the rear, locking it in place, and visually inspect the chamber. Now that I know that it's unloaded, I'll show you the difference in what I'm talking about between a bushing barrel and a bull barrel. And if you look, you can see that this is just a barrel. There's no, when I say the bushing, I'm referring to the part that sits here that holds the barrel in place to the slide on most 1911s, and this version, the Pro Carry and others, just has an extra fat barrel instead of that bushing. So to disassemble this, we need a tool. Kimber ships with a factory tool, which is very small and easily lost. Fortunately, a bent paper clip will do the job. This full-length guide rod on the left side is a very small hole. And what we'll do is we'll insert our paper clip into that hole and just kind of let it dangle there. And then we'll release the slide. And what that does is that catches the guide rod and the end cap here and holds them in place. We can then press forward to line up the second small notch with the takedown lever. Remove the takedown lever and slide the frame from the gun. Once there, we'll pull the guide rod and spring and cap out from the back. We'll flip down the link pin and remove the bull barrel from the front. Disassembly is fairly complete. Now, you can take the spring and cap off if you want to do a more thorough clean of your guide rod, if you want to replace your springs. The trick is putting it back together, because it can be very stiff and challenging, and I would recommend not pointing it at your face, because you have to compress that tight spring to get the tool back in place. So, like all handguns, reassembly, we just reverse the process. We'll place the barrel back in the gun, and again, I like to flip the link pin up. Slide the guide rod and spring assembly back in the gun, making sure that the concave portion of the guide rod is facing the barrel. And like with most 1911s, the most challenging part is getting everything lined up with the frame and slide. We'll pull to the rear until we see that link, we see the hole in the link pin through this hole. Reinsert the takedown lever or the slide stop, and we'll keep pulling it to the rear until we've lined up again that second small hole. Press up, and that'll lock the slide back to the frame. And at this point, we'll just pull to the rear and lock it. Remove our tool, and disassembly is complete. And there you have it. That's the disassembly and reassembly of a bull barrel gun with a full-length guide rod. Here in a minute, I'll put on my GoPro and we'll shoot POV footage, so hopefully you can see some of the details a little bit better. As always, we're going to make sure that this gun is unloaded before we continue. To do that, we'll press the magazine release and allow any magazine to fall free. Press up on the slide stop, pull the slide to the rear and lock it, and visually inspect the chamber to make sure there's no ammo in the gun. From there, if you see the hole in the upper left side of the guide rod, you'll take your either Kimber factory supplied tool or your bent paper clip, stick it in that hole, and just let it hang. We'll release the slide, and you'll see that the pin captures the spring on the guide rod. Once that's done, we can press forward till we line up the second small gap in the rear of the frame, and we'll press right to left on the slide stop and remove it. You can then remove the slide from the frame, set that aside. Guide rod assembly comes out from the rear, and again, you can take this apart for maintenance or replace the spring, but I don't recommend doing it every time because it is very hard to compress the spring to get the tool back in place. Barrel comes out through the front. Now, as you can see, there's no bushing. In fact, this slide isn't even milled for a bushing, and the barrel is much fatter than a standard 1911 barrel. Another quirk I'd like to point out, and it's one that's given me problems twice now while trying to shoot this, is this extra detent here. And that's safety. It's kind of Kimber's take on Colt's Series 80 safety. And it actually functions with this plunger here in the slide. And it can often cause you problems when it comes to putting things back together. And one thing is, if you cannot, for any reason, get your slide back onto the frame properly, it's probably this, and what's probably happening is you're squeezing the grip safety while you're trying to put it together. So for reassembly, we'll simply reverse the process. And lining everything back up has been a problem with this gun. We have to line up the hole in the frame with the detent in the barrel with the hole in the link pin so we can slide our slide stop back in, and on a couple of different takes that's been real challenging. So once we have that lined up, we'll place the slide stop back in. We'll again pull the gun to the rear until we line up these notches here, replace the slide stop, and once that's done we can lock the slide to the rear, remove the tool, and reassembly is complete. And there you have it. It's the disassembly and reassembly of the Kimber Pro Carry, or a 1911 with a bull barrel and a full-length guide rod.
Hey, it's Mark with Lucky Hat Outdoors. If you like what you saw and want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and check us out on Facebook and Instagram.